let's talk about the comment. Another option is to apply a portable debugger or connect to a computer via converter. All the process is visualized, then I can grasp the whole process. That's definitely something that you can do. We do have a portable commissioning tool that can connect to this, and it assists in the startup process of it. It is not required to use that tool for that startup process. It's a simple push button process, but either way, you can do that. The portable debugger also shows you your temperatures and your pressures for everything on the system. Now, I will say that you can also see all that information through a wired controller if your system has one. You can see the pressures, temperatures, the target compressor speed, the target hertz, your DC bus. Instead of pulling out a meter and measuring the DC voltage on your inverter board, you can see what that's being measured at the wired controller or at a portable debugger. Greg, would you like to add something to that?
Well, the new GMV6 Ultra, that whole debug process, step by step, just pushing the buttons on the board is right there on the service panel. Right. Makes it extremely easy. You don't have to have the service tool, although I encourage the use of the service tool because, like you said, it gives you a lot more information, and you can see the whole system from one spot. You don't have to go to multiple indoor units to see, pressures and all that kind of stuff. But as far as startup goes, when I started up the one that I was testing, I had the portable service tool right there, and I just used the board because it was so easy just to toggle. It's just pushing a couple buttons and letting it go through its process. So whether you're doing it with the service tool or you're doing it just by pushing the buttons right there on the board, it's a pretty simple process to run through it. Now, if you have a glitch in it, in other words, you have an error code, this service tool might give you a little bit more information. Generally speaking, if your debugging process stops and you get an error code, then you can refer to the service manual. You can also look at right on the service panel of the door. It gives you all the error codes. You could have a very simple error code. I give you a simple example of one that I dealt with where the guy was going through debug, and all of a sudden, I forget the error code number right off the top of my head, but it was stuck right there. And I look up the error code. I'm like, okay, you got no power to the indoor unit. Well, they were wiring the float switch, for the condensate pump was fused, and they were fusing the condensate pump and the air handler with a 0.5 amp fuse. So as soon as the air handler tried to start the blower, it blew the fuse. So it was a very simple, correct the wiring, only fuse the pump, ran it through debug, no big deal. But that's just one example, and I'm not trying to make fun of anybody or anything like that. It's just, it could be that simple. If it doesn't complete debug, there's an error. It's going to pop the error code, and then you'll know where to go next, whether you look at the service manual or if you use the service tool. Again, I don't think you're going to have the service tool for that.
Right.
As long as you get on the website, get our service manual, because the installation instructions is what the machine comes with. It doesn't give you the service manual. If you download the service manual, then it'll give you the error code listing and point you in the direction where you need to be, and maybe some helpful pointers of what could be going wrong.
Right.
Usually on a new installation, it's pretty simple. It's not going to be a major error code like a board failure or anything like that. I just don't see that happening.
Right. I think that's something we kind of brush across, is the fact that these do show you error codes. Traditional system, if it didn't operate, you're like, okay, well, let me start from, okay, do I have power? Do I have 24 volts? Do I have this? You're just following that chain. And sure, we're all accustomed to that at this point. But with an error code, you can bypass a lot of that stuff, right? And go directly, it gives you a direction to go into. You can go directly to what that problem might be. For instance, like in the case of your error code, that you're talking about.
And it does a good job of telling you whether it's an indoor or an outdoor error code.
Yeah.
So you know whether it's on an indoor unit or it's on an outdoor unit. That was a one-to-one system, so it was really easy to go to that on the example that I had. But had it been one to multiple, the error code would have only been on the machine that they miswired the condensate pump. It wouldn't have been on every single head.
Right. So, even the push button process for the startup, it's just the SW3 button. You press and hold it once, and then you press to confirm the amount of indoor units you have, and then you press it one more time to start the debugging process. There's nothing to it. There's all kinds of numbers and letters and stuff like that it might show you, and that means a lot to us. We have an explanation for that on our website for the startup procedure. gives it a step-by-step kind of thing. But for all intents and purposes, it is a 3-step process. It's about as complicated as going and turning on one of those really fancy thermostats, right? Without all the time delays and everything.
Well, James, you ain't wrong there, because some of the setup menus and them thermostats take you a good 15, 20 minutes
Yeah,
to go through the setup menu on the thermostat.
right. And as a company, we've become a lot more familiar with those those setup processes for those thermostats, with the Flex or with the Multi-Pro with the 24-volt adapter. I'm like, man, they weren't lying when they said this thing was universal. It's got a lot of options, It's got a 30-step process to set up a thermostat.